Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
So people are watching us, guys. I don't know if she told you. I've gotten several emails from people. I saw you on Agent Commission. Okay.
All right, I think we're ready. Ben is here.
We're ready? Okay.
Donald will join us in a minute.
Let's see if he gets on the air yet.
Hi, Ben.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're ready.
All right, you can go ahead.
Oh,
yeah,
wait, it doesn't say on the air yet. What about on the air?
Oh, here's Donald.
He said, wait a minute.
Well, Donald's connecting, so that's great.
Oh, Donald's on Zoom?
Yeah, I'll take it.
See, you said, think positive.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Manifestation, he's here.
Hmm.
Now, if we get there.
Maybe that on the air thing is broken.
Okay, it's just not on.
Signs doesn't say.
All right.
Welcome everybody to the September meeting of the Commission on Aging Well. Hope everybody's enjoying the nice weather. And our first agenda item is to take a look at the draft minutes that Jill sent out. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, do I hear a motion for approval?
I'd move to approve as submitted.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion, draft minutes are approved. There are no public appearances today for non-agenda items, so we'll move directly to the transportation grant opportunity.
All right. Well, I just want to thank Ben for being here. I've worked with Ben over the years here and there through some advocacy for transportation, and as part of our transportation plan, I asked Ben to come here today to talk about the 53 grant funding because that money funnels through Ben at the Madison MPO. So I will let Ben introduce himself and share whatever information he can to get us more informed about that grant opportunity.
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me, Jill. Good morning, everybody. As Jill said, I'm Ben Lyman. I'm a transportation planner with the Greater Madison Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO. Let's see if I can share. All right, everybody's seeing that screen?
Yep.
Can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, my screen just went black. Okay, here we go. So the Section 5210 program is one of the federal funding programs that are administered by the Greater Madison MPO. We also get to choose projects and administer the Transportation Alternatives Program, which is used for pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure and can be used for transit infrastructure as well. Fitchburg, in a recent grant cycle, was granted funding for an underpass of to continue the trail on the east side of Fitchburg through that program. We're uncertain if it's going to be moved forward due to right-of-way issues, but the team at the city is continuing to try and make that really important. And then we also do the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, which is a much larger funding stream that's more traditionally used for roadway projects, such as the reconstruction of John Nolan Drive that's there on the left. And then, the 5310 program, which is enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities. And so I'm going to be focusing on that today. Let's see here. Too many buttons. There we go. Okay. So the 5310 program is used for projects that improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. It can also serve people who are not seniors and who don't have disabilities, such as the Stoughton Public Transit vehicles, their shared ride taxi system. The city of Sun Prairie also used to operate a shared ride taxi system, and those vehicles were often, not always, but often purchased with money through the 5310 program. We get about $480,000 from the FTA every year, and we do an application process that starts in generally early June, and then applications are due in early August. And our policy board just made their preliminary awards at their September 4th meeting, and then the final awards are finalized with the adoption of the Transportation Improvement Program in October. And so some of the projects that have been funded with that, in addition to those city shared ride taxis, the Dane County Human Services Transportation Call Center and Metro Paratransit Eligibility Assessment are also funded through this program every year. They still have to apply. They still have to compete with everybody else, but they have been funded every year for many years. Madison Area Rehabilitation Center has gotten several vehicles. And then other nonprofit and shared ride non-emergency medical transportation vehicles. And my button went away again. Here we go. So eligible recipients are state or local governments, private nonprofits, and you can also contract with a for-profit company for the operation. It does require a competitive process. So, for example, the Dane County Accessible Taxi Service is a nonprofit that we've granted funding to for several accessible minivans. And then they went through a competitive process, selected Union Cab to operate those vehicles. So they don't actually have to operate them directly. Union Cab, because it's one, not a nonprofit, and two, operates on an exclusive ride model rather than a shared ride model. So they just take one party at a time wherever they want to go, as opposed to saying, oh, well, we have several people who are in this neighborhood who all need to go to the UW hospital at around the same time, and so we'll just take all of them at once. That would be a shared ride. And then operators of public transit, including shared ride taxi, are eligible. Eligible activities, there are two categories essentially. There are capital projects, which can be funded up to 80% federal funding. Those would be vehicle purchases or non-vehicle capital purchases, such as adding aftermarket ramps and lifts to an existing vehicle. We've done that for the YWCA. Or radio or communications equipment. And again, YWCA received a grant for upgrading their communications equipment through this. Also, mobility management. It's sort of a wonky idea, but that's what both the Metro Paratransit Eligibility Assessment and the Dane County Call Center fall under. And so they're coordinating rides, they're providing travel training, they're not necessarily providing the transportation themselves, but they're coordinating and making it more efficient. They're also operating projects, which are only covered at 50% federal. So these are public transportation projects that exceed the requirements of ADA. So, for example, if Metro Paratransit, rather than going to 3/4 of a mile from their fixed route stops, if they upgraded that to 1 mile for paratransit service, that funding could potentially be funded through the 5310 program. Also, projects that improve access to fixed route transit service, decrease reliance by individuals with disabilities on complementary paratransit, and alternatives to public transportation that assist seniors and individuals with disabilities. We generally steer away from doing a lot of operating projects. We did recently award a grant to Newbridge Madison for funding a driver and dispatch position there. But we're really leery of having projects become dependent on that funding every year, and that if we don't end up selecting them one year, where do the funds come from the next year? And does the program die? Do the people lose their jobs because they don't have funding anymore? So we try and use that as sort of a bolster to get a new program going, but not something that's going to be a long, a multi-year obligation to support the program. And come on. Okay, last time it liked my right arrow, not anymore. The intended beneficiaries of this program are seniors, those age 65 and older adults, those age 60 and over, people with disabilities, people with low incomes, and veterans. And again, other people can sort of incidentally be served, but these are the intended beneficiaries of the program. And if you have any questions at any time, please do let me know. And so here, just sort of calling out that especially those seniors and people with disabilities are our target. So sub-recipients, if and this would be y'all, if you were to apply for it and receive this grant, you're responsible for 100% of upfront costs. This is a reimbursement program. So if you were to purchase a vehicle, you'd be responsible for paying for that vehicle and then submitting all of the necessary documentation to Metro, and then Metro would reimburse you for that up to 80%.
Question.
And Metro is the designated recipient, and so everything goes through them money-wise.
I got a question for you on that. How soon do you reimburse us? Is that something that's instant after we send in, or is that something that comes by 2 years later or something?
It's generally done on like for operational projects or mobility management, it's done on a quarterly basis, generally speaking. And then it's just sort of once the paperwork is done at Metro, it's the next 2-week period when they're cutting checks.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say it's instantaneous, but it's certainly not a 2-year delay. That said, we've had a few vehicle purchases, especially recently, with manufacturing delays and equipment, just as we know, during COVID, buying vehicles became much more expensive and much more complicated and just took a lot longer. So Union Cab just took possession of its second and third vehicles from the 2022 funding cycle on August 19th. So, that was a long delay. That was not on our end, but of course they can't submit for reimbursement until they have the vehicles and they have the paperwork and they've been registered, and so there was definitely a delay there. But they also, they didn't pay for those 2 years ago. They had to wait to actually get the vehicles, and now they're paying for them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Great. So we have the MPO administered projects within the urban area. So although the MPO does do some planning work countywide, we do the Dane County Bicycle Map, which is obviously countywide. We need to account for people moving throughout the county, and then the coordinated plan that sort of drives the priorities in the 5310 program is also countywide. That said, the state has its own pot of money for rural areas and small urban areas such as the city of Stoughton. Fitchburg is, as you can see here, the urbanized part of Fitchburg is within the MPO administered urban area. The rural southern part of the city of Fitchburg is not. It's within our planning area, but it's not within our urban area. And so basically, we're getting dollars apportioned to us based on the population of the Madison urban area that's shown there. And the head count for the rural areas outside that money's going to the state. And so if you were to apply for a program, operational funding, whatever, and you were going to be serving all of the city of Fitchburg, including those more rural areas, I would strongly encourage you to apply for both MPO administered funding and the statewide funding. It's exactly the same information on both applications. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but that gives you access to a second pot of money that you could, potentially get some funding from both programs to cover all of your costs. And then we would just have to coordinate that with the state. So they're going to go over the roles and responsibilities. Basically, the beginning of the process I take care of. We solicit applications for funding, typically in early June of each year. We then review the applications that are submitted in early August and make recommendations for funding awards. The policy board provides preliminary approval at its September meeting, and then when it adopts the transportation improvement program, that finalizes the approval, and that's in early October each year. We then hand it over to Metro, and they draft the contracts and they include those projects in the city budget, because again, the money is officially going from the FTA to Metro, and then the city is contracting with the award recipients to then provide that reimbursement. And then Metro Transit administers the grants and all of the reporting requirements. If site visits are necessary, reviewing maintenance logs on vehicles, that sort of thing, that's all handled by Metro. The subrecipient, and again, that would be you folks or somebody at Fitchburg. Roles and responsibilities. One, to inform MPO staff of your intent to apply. And usually when I solicit applications, I request that people email me and let me know so that I just have a general sense, are we going to be swamped with applications? Are we going to be able to fund everything that's going to be requested without having to score applications? Do I have to organize a scoring committee or can I just take care of it on my own? This year I neglected to include that request and got a little blindsided by some very unexpected applications. We had almost twice as much money requested as our annual apportionment. So I'm going to do my darndest to remember to request that next year, just again, so I have a bit of a heads up. And then I also provide follow-up information, participate in interviews, on-site visits if necessary, and just try and be an advocate for recipients and make sure that they understand the program and what their needs, what needs to happen, and be the people person in the mix. So you're not just dealing with an accountant who is just worried about the paperwork.
Question. When you say on-site visit, what is that? Is that like a review?
That would be, again, that's generally for vehicle purchases. Scott Korth is the grant administrator at Metro, and he'll go out once a year and look at your maintenance logs and just take a look at the vehicle and make sure that it's still in a state of good repair.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, we're not doing an audit or anything, or wandering around your facility asking strange questions.
Another question.
Yeah.
You said you had you had double the request as the amount of funds. What kind of priority criteria are you basing who gets the money?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
Give me just a few more slides here.
Okay.
I have a question though, real quickly. You spoke of urban and rural and in terms of application applying for both. Any idea of success rate in terms of people receiving both of those?
I don't think that it's done very often because there aren't very many communities in Wisconsin like Fitchburg where half of the city is urbanized and half is not. You're in sort of a unique situation. Most communities are either rural communities or small urban communities that are in a larger urban area. So you're in a unique situation there. That said, I do not believe that the statewide $5310 it's much less competitive. They usually have leftover funds, and so they're able to fund projects that are requesting it that are worthwhile. And again, that can change in any given year, but they generally have more money available than is requested.
And that's through the DOT, Ben?
Yep, that's Wisconsin DOT. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so again, subrecipient roles and responsibilities. You need to work with Metro Transit to procure capital items and assure that federal procurement regulations are met. So you can't just go over to your local dealership and buy a vehicle. It needs to go through a competitive process. Generally, we strongly suggest that you purchase vehicles that are through the state's negotiated human service contract. So they go out, they do a competitive process that meets federal procurement guidelines, and then they say, okay, great, this, company A is going to be providing minivans, and company B is going to be providing these sort of mid-size vans that are in the picture here, and company C is going to be doing full-size buses. And then you don't have to worry about going through that competitive process. You just say, this is the vehicle type I want. They give you the contact information for that company, and you work with the company on the configuration of wheelchair tie downs and seats and all of that, and any other bells and whistles that you want. You need to develop and maintain a maintenance plan that is held on file with Metro. You need to inspect, insure, and maintain all vehicles that are funded through the program. Have to complete and submit acceptance certifications to Metro upon vehicle delivery. And so this is showing that, like, yes, you meet Buy America requirements. And yes, this vehicle, is actually the vehicle that was in the human service contract with the state, and submit all of that to Metro, and then deliver the project, whatever it is described in the grant project application. And finally, provide financial management of the project, including provision of the local match and assurance that those Section 5310 funds are used for the project identified in the project application. And there is some flexibility there. Mark, I think it's actually this vehicle that's shown right here, had bought this vehicle because they wanted to provide employment transportation to some of their clients. And within a year or two of when they had gotten the vehicle, unfortunately, all of those particular clients had passed on. And so they then pivoted and started using the vehicle for non-employment transportation. That's okay. We just need to know about it so that we can note that and then make sure that it's still being used for eligible purposes. You need to submit quarterly financial progress reports, operating statistics, so how many rides provided, how many were to seniors, how many were to people who are ambulatory or non-ambulatory, how many miles was the vehicle driven. Need to maintain a Title VI plan and comply with federal Title VI requirements. Luckily, Fitchburg already is on the hook for that, so nothing new there. Need to submit to annual on-site inspections as requested by Metro and the Wisconsin State Patrol, so they actually go out and also make sure the vehicle is safe. Comply with any other private sector participation requirements. You have to get a DUNS number and provide that, as well as a SAM account, the System Award Management account, that's through the FTA, and then any other additional applicable state and federal requirements. And there's a long list of certifications and requirements that have to be signed off, and then an attorney has to sign off that whoever signed it had the right to sign it. This is often a lot more, yeah.
So assuming that we would have funding through both the state and the NPO grant, I am assuming that the reports would be duplicated to each, and are they standardized, or are yours tailored to just your purposes?
No, it's all comes down to meeting FTA requirements.
Okay.
So it's all the same. We don't have any stricter requirements. The state doesn't have any stricter requirements. We're just collecting what the FTA requires, and then attesting to the FTA that you're meeting their requirements.
So they could be duplicates.
Yeah. Yep.
And then along those lines, Ben, if we did a shared ride taxi situation, is it their responsibility to submit reports?
Well, that would be between the, assuming you have a contractor, and I'll use Brown Cab or Running Incorporated, which are really the same company. They just kind of do business under different headings. They have operated both the Sun Prairie and the Stoughton shared ride taxi systems for many years, and also operate systems. I think they operate 32 systems throughout the state. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying you have to go through that, but just using them as an example. If you were to contract with Running Incorporated, they would then be responsible for providing that information about ridership and mileage and all of that. They would need to provide that to you, but you'd also have to have that in your contract with them, that they were going to be collecting that information and providing it to you so that you can pass it on to Metro.
Okay, thank you.
So projects also need to be, and this gets into that scoring and how do we prioritize things. They need to be consistent with the coordinated plan. And that the full title of that is the Dane County Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan. And for obvious reasons, I don't call it that. I just call it the Coordinated Plan. And as it notes here, the plan is being updated in late 2024. I actually expect the draft of that to be released to the public tomorrow. Hopefully, we're kind of just doing the last formatting and review and making sure the maps are legible. But that should be posted to our website in the very near future. And then Jill, I'll be emailing you to let you know when that's available. And so we look at the strategies to address needs that are in that document. There are financial needs, there's coordination, education and outreach, there's service needs, vehicle needs, infrastructure needs, and technology needs. And so first we look at in scoring, we look at the demonstration of need and project benefit. And the application needs to describe how the existing project or the proposed project will be effective at meeting the transportation needs of seniors and people with disabilities, and what happens if the funding is not awarded. And so it's 10 points maximum, a replacement vehicle for an existing system that's just needed because the old, the other vehicle's got 200,000 miles on it, the air conditioning doesn't work, it rattles, it's unsafe. That's going to be 10 points maximum. An expansion vehicle, so you just need to grow the fleet so that you can provide more rides, that's 8 points maximum. Mobility management, which is again that sort of coordination and education and improving the efficiency of the system, is 10 points maximum. And then non-traditional projects are kind of everything else, operational and just sort of the weird other things, 8 points maximum.
You don't have in this project type, you have replacement vehicle and expansion vehicle to build up your. What if we don't have any vehicles right now at all?
Right.
Yeah. How about
so that actually if you look at in the application, there's nothing black box about this. There's actually there's more information, but it's a PowerPoint, so I don't want to put every bullet that's in the application on here, but it does explain a little bit more about that. And essentially, an expansion vehicle would include a new program where you're expanding from 0 to 1.
That makes sense. From 0 to 1.
It needs to support the coordinated plan, and so we have a couple different tiers of projects. And if it fits into tier 1, then it's 10-point max. And again, this is existing service level of viable programs or operations. So this isn't new programs. It's just supporting things that people are already depending on. So I'm going to go ahead and just skip that one because it won't apply. And then we have two tier 2 tiers, accommodating increasing demands for services within existing programs and operations. And then the next one, 2B, would be emerging community needs, opportunities, and creating new partnerships. So these are new programs. And you'd be identifying transportation needs and gaps for an underserved group of individuals, and adding benefit to the transportation services network and riders. So as a new program, you'd be getting 6 points maximum here. And I should also note, we used to have one person on the scoring committee who was you have to build up from 0 in your scores. All three of us who scored this year are more of a, we're going to subtract points when you do a poor job of explaining something. And so it's really worth it, fill the space. Don't write a sentence saying we're going to provide rides to seniors. We've had people do that before. It's not worth my time to even really consider somebody who isn't going to explain what the project is. So, get into the details. What are the food services, the social interactions, the exercise classes, what's the human impact of this project? And it's going to score much better on a lot of these other metrics that don't have sort of set thresholds like these tiers. And that will really make the biggest difference in your overall score. Need to serve a reasonable number of individuals or trips given the budget. And so basically, we take the budget, we look at the number of trips or the number of contacts or the number of meals delivered, whatever it is, and ones that score at a more efficient level will score better. And we just kind of, bell curve that. And the sheer number of contacts that the Dane County One Call Center fields, and the number of rides and the number of times that they interact with people, that project scores incredibly well every year. Also, the Metro paratransit eligibility, because they can, by doing travel training and identifying people who are able to move to actually, with travel training, move to the Metro fixed route system and away from paratransit, they save something like $30,000 per person that they are able to make that transition. And so it's a huge cost savings. They also score very well. Some of the smaller, this year, the Down Syndrome Association of Wisconsin actually applied for more funding than we had. They were the lion's share. Very unexpected, out of the blue application I was not expecting. They had an operational project, a mobility management project, and they wanted 2 vehicles. We ended up recommending that they get 1 vehicle and not the other things, just to spread the money around a bit more. But they're looking at providing, I think, 1,200 trips a year, which doesn't score nearly as well as something that is going to be providing 5,000 trips in a year.
Hey, Ben, is it one way or a round trip?
It's one way. One way.
Okay.
Yep. For FTA, it's always unlinked passenger trips.
Okay.
So each one-way trip.
Do those trips have?
And then we also count. Sorry?
I was going to ask, do those trips have to be separated? Because if we're applying to 2 different grants, there will be 2 different criteria for rural and metro transportation, and those costs could be very different, and the rural could dilute the efficiency of the metro. So would those have to be computed separately, or would you advise that be done?
I would strongly recommend that in your narrative you could even explain that, like, although it's going to be a single system, you're not going to be using a different vehicle for each thing. That you anticipate although the number of trips in the rural area will probably be lower because there are fewer people, they will be proportionally much more expensive because it's a longer distance, and it's less efficient because you have fewer people in the vehicle. So I would strongly recommend that you parse that out in your explanation, and then you can apply to WISDOT for those more expensive trips, so to speak, and to us for the more efficient urbanized trips. And then again, you'd be able to report out based on the dispatch knows where the vehicle is going, because they have to have an address to go pick the person up or drop them off, and so they would then be able to say, this is a trip that began in a rural area, ended in an urban area. This was a rural to rural and urban to urban. That would be something that they would be able to put together for you.
And Ben, that urban boundary, is it McKee PD, Highway PD, or is it Lacey? Where does it?
We just updated it. We can go back to that. I don't know offhand.
Okay, I can look at the map later too. If that will make it.
I think it's Lacey, but it might be McKee.
Okay. Irish. That'd be really rural.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Irish Lane.
Yep. That area. We can go back to that slide in a
Lacey.
Okay.
And then, so next is coordination with other agencies. And we really want to try and make sure that we're not duplicating services. And so if you explain what the gap is and that there aren't any other options for seniors in your area, that the coordination is a little bit less important. However, if you put in that how you're going to be coordinating with the Dane County Call Center and the you have group access service and
for our nutrition
RSG,
program.
Yep, in your nutrition program, yeah. So explain how you work with that and how you work with the county and any other service providers, and that really helps a lot. This is also one of our past awardees, Community Living Connections, has done a really good job of sharing their vehicle with other other nonprofits that do the same sort of home care and working with people with disabilities. And that's what we love to see, that the vehicle isn't just sitting idle and taking 2 trips a week, but instead when it's not being used by the recipient, they're sharing it with their own agreement, insurance costs, gas, maintenance, whatever, they figure it out amongst themselves, but that vehicle is still being used to help move other people around. So that's also really important coordination that I don't think would be applicable to Fitchburg, but just to kind of let you know what we're looking for. Then you also describe who is eligible to ride or participate. If it's open to all eligible seniors or individuals with disabilities, you get your max points there. If it's limited to a select client base, then it's fewer. So again, the community living connections, they're only, for the most part, they're using those vehicles for moving their clients around, or even sharing the vehicle with similar organizations, as opposed to a share ride taxi that's eligible. Anybody's eligible for it. The Hmong Institute was also selected for funding in the most recent round, so that they could get a vehicle to move Hmong elders and transport them to cultural events and food, and that's still all eligible seniors. It's not necessarily, well, we kind of debated that. But they're filling a really important gap where folks are not necessarily comfortable riding with standard paratransit drivers or even group access service because they have different drivers, they don't understand, they don't speak the language, so there's a cultural barrier there. And so to be eligible, you need to be basically, they have 3 or 4 different, it's Laotian, Hmong, Cambodian. So if you are part of that Southeast Asian population, you are eligible. We didn't look at that as being the same as like the select client base of, we have 10 people who we work with, and those are the people who will be providing rides to. Finally, you need to show the financial and management capacity, reasonable level of administrative costs. Note that costs of administering the grant itself are not eligible expenses. You have to have budgets or support letters or other documentation with your local match source. And then the project sponsor has the capacity to meet the project management, reporting, and delivery functions. This is, again, somewhere where small nonprofits or small non-emergency medical transportation providers often don't have that capacity, and that becomes difficult. When folks have trouble filling out the application, I generally advise them to not submit the application, because if they can't fill out our Excel sheet application, they're never going to manage the federal reporting. and then that gets them on the hook and it becomes a mess. And so, we don't want them to go down that road.
How many are involved in analyzing the applications, scoring?
Generally, there are 3 of us. This last year, it's a Wisconsin DOT transit section employee, and then the director of the MPO and myself scored this year. In past years, it's been Katie Patterson, again, from Wisconsin DOT, myself, and then a gentleman who worked in specialized transportation all through his career, but then retired. And we finally decided this year that we would just let him stay retired and not bug him. I think he's been scoring for 5 years after his retirement. So
do each of you evaluate it individually and then you compare?
Yep, yeah, we score individually and then we get together to discuss. And there it's really much more about sort of the ultimate ranking. We don't squabble so much, like one person's welcome to think this write-up was great and the other person thinks that it missed some important points. It's more important, can we come to consensus about what projects we want to fund? And so I'll draft a proposed funding scenario. So after we go over the scores, we agree that yes, these 2 are top scoring and these are kind of in the middle and these really don't meet the bar. Then we can look at it and say, okay, well, let's get, this agency wants 3 vehicles. Well, what if we just fund 1 vehicle for them so that we can also fund a vehicle for somebody else and try and spread those dollars around?
Is there an avenue?
Is
there an avenue to appeal a decision?
You can. So the staff is just a funding recommendation, and then the MPO policy board actually votes to adopt that. And it's a two-step process. Again, they're meeting in September, and then again with the adoption of the Transportation Improvement Program in October. And you're welcome to come to either of those meetings and speak on your behalf and to say, it really doesn't make sense that you're funding this other project and not ours. And the MPO Policy Board could certainly, adjust what their recommendation is. There isn't an appeal from their decision.
Would it be possible to review other successful previous applications?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everything is public information aside from audit reports and the stuff that's confidential. Everything else is totally public. And I'm happy to provide that. If you kind of give me some parameters about what types of projects you're interested in, then I'm happy to provide that. I'm going to try and end that so I can go back to the map.
Just a quick question. Do you provide, for those that you deny, do you provide any feedback as to why?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Everybody gets an email that kind of explains what our recommendations are. Haven't had anyone, really make a fuss about it. I think that we're always quite clear about that. But certainly, if folks want to throw a stink about staff's recommendations, then the policy board can hear that and make whatever decision that they want. This is why I couldn't really say exactly where which road it is in Fitchburg. It's looks like MM here, and then kind of a combination. And I can get you a better map that you can actually zoom in on and have street labels and all of that.
Okay. Just that southern border would be great.
Not very straight.
No,
at all.
So then it's well below PD though.
Yeah.
Those are all their districts.
It looks like that furthest one might be Irish land, but not all of it.
Well, that's what I was wondering,
Yeah.
because it's not going all the way down, is it?
No, the yellow is the urban service area, and
So
then
what is that shaded part?
I think that's the rural, right, Ben?
That's the city of Fitchburg.
Yeah.
That cross option is all Fitchburg.
Right. So
But wait, it's all Fitchburg urban and rural, or just Fitchburg rural?
No, urban and rural. The yellow is the urban.
Of Fitchburg? Of any city?
That's
Oh,
the
Madison
urban
greater.
service area, which Fitchburg falls into a little bit, but we're trying to figure out when we become rural.
Right.
Yeah.
I tend to take a little second.
It is. He's gonna look it up.
Why does that even matter?
Because you have to do DOT
Two
funds for
different
rural
grants.
and MPO
Yeah.
funds for urban.
Yeah.
But if we don't have much ridership in rural, the
Right.
cost per ride is gonna be,
Absolutely.
$100. So,
Extremely high.
yeah. So we
Well,
just,
you're still
yeah,
gonna
if they
you're
have
still gonna
money.
need to file for it
correct,
in order to serve that area.
right, yeah, so, okay.
Because I
And
guess
did you say that was under, or there were
there's
less
more money
demand?
and they sometimes have excess, so you'd be more likely to get funding.
Right.
For
Okay.
rural?
I guess one question,
Well, he's still on. I got a few questions for Donald, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, for
Ben.
For Ben. Donald, you're gonna need to recap, Donald. Yeah, okay, Ben, do you have a few minutes?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up an ArcGIS map that we can zoom in on.
Okay.
Well, I would like to see that.
Yeah.
You want to ask a question, Barbara?
well, I was curious, what if only one, hypothetically, if one or the other grant application were approved, would you not be able to provide rides to people living in the area that was not approved? For example, the rural area got approved, but not the urban. Could we not then serve people in the urban area with the transportation needs?
The short answer is no, there wouldn't be a restriction against that.
Okay.
The longer answer is that we'd have to discuss it and figure out how that would work logistically.
Yeah.
But currently, so like the Dane County Transportation Call Center is a really good example. where, they are county-wide and they operate outside the urban area. But, the majority of trips are within the urban area. I have encouraged them to also apply for statewide funding for many years, and they never have, because it would grow the pot of money. Why not apply? But at the same time, we're not going to say, no, you can't answer the phone if someone from Mount Horeb calls you. Similarly, we had a vehicle that was purchased by Capital Express, and then the company was sold to Xerology. They didn't tell us about it. It just happened. Technically, the transfer of the vehicle, because it's federal, feds have an interest in it. The MPO policy board should have approved the transfer of that vehicle, but we weren't even told about it. It just happened. And then Xerology went bankrupt, went out of business. And so luckily Metro was able to get that vehicle and get it parked on their lot. And then we figured out, we finally got the lien. It turned out it had never actually been transferred from the guy who owned Capital Express. And so we got the lien from him, or the title from him rather. And then we put out a request to transportation providers saying, hey, is there anybody out there who is doing this kind of transportation who would like an accessible minivan? And FECO Sky Transportation, which is actually based out of Portage, was the only operator that said, yeah, we'd love an accessible minivan. The local match had already been paid. The federal money was already done. So they just got a vehicle for free, basically. And we did the transfer to them. But even though they're based out of Portage, most of their trips are to and from Dane County because they're folks who are coming down here for medical services. And so that's still benefiting the transportation landscape in Dane County, even though those residents are actually residents of Portage. So, we don't hold the line that strictly. Certainly, if an operator based out of Dane County had asked for the vehicle, I think they would have gotten preference over Columbia County provider, but ultimately we just wanted to get the vehicle back on the road and providing trips to seniors and people with disabilities. That's the bottom line. So I do have a better map pulled up now. Okay, so you can see here, looks like it goes down to Burn Road along Fort, and then up to Irish with this little enclave along Fish Hatch.
What's that little bump out?
That's like the green.
Let's change the background map and find out.
Huh, okay, just curious.
Weird.
What's down by Irish Lane?
It's that little development right by the greenhouse, right over there.
Oh, I know, okay. Condos, right?
There's some homes back there. So.
Okay.
I think that's the green.
It's not really wanting me to change my base map, apparently.
Okay. Well, we figured that.
There we go. Oh, this is actually just the Madison area. My county there.
2007.
I don't know why. We have more recent imagery, but I guess it just hasn't been linked to this map yet.
Okay.
Got like 2023 aerial photography of the whole county. I don't know why it's not showing up here.
Can you pull that back out?
Yeah, just and not let my computer get.
Oh,
there we go.
So that must be Lacey then too, the west. Yeah.
That's Irish Lane coming back down. What is that street that's cutting?
Is that Seminole then? Lacey to Seminole or Fitchburg? There we go.
Is that Meltzer?
I'm not sure.
That's interesting.
What's there? Why that was included?
Park? Or or is that the city hall? No.
I think that's City Hall.
City Hall's down
Yeah,
there.
that's City
that,
Hall.
Veterans Park, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Veterans Park. Oh, bumped out like that.
So how about west over Verona Road, Ben, those boundaries?
So Fitchburg City Hall is in the rural area?
Well, it wasn't one time.
No, that was in, it's everything below the blue line, wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, because it dropped down to Irish, so they're.
This is your city hall and library right here, right?
Oh, okay.
No, the
Where the-
old City Hall, the recycling
City
center.
Hall.
Oh my, what the heck? That was City Hall before?
Yeah.
I thought that was City Hall, yeah.
Yeah.
That's City Hall.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
So that's in the urban area, right, Ben? Yeah,
So is this city? Oh, well, don't matter.
yeah.
So everything north of that blue line is in the urban area.
So City Hall, see it, yeah, that's in the urban. Huh, so it even goes pretty far south. There's even go further over west, so we can see the other side of Verona Road. Yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting how it
Okay.
dips way
Oh,
in.
so it doesn't, okay.
So none of that is
Goes way
urban.
south. Mhm.
South.
Stuff way over here by Verona, part of our urban.
No,
So
the upper.
to give a little explanation of how these lines are drawn,
It's Madison.
the U.S. Census gives, they basically say, this is the U.S. Census defined urban area. We are then able to add little bits to it if we think that there's an area that's going to be developed in the near future. But we have to sort of justify that. It has to be that we think it's going to be developing pretty quickly. But again, we can't subtract anything from that urban area that the census has defined. And so there are some little things, but we work with each community and their planning staff to make sure that, if there's development in the works. So a lot of what we're seeing in this area, there's clearly some construction that's already going on. And so that's an area that is reasonably going to become urbanized in the very near future. But it's hard to, I'm not really sure why this neighborhood wasn't included. That seems odd to me, but it wasn't a project that I worked on. But there, again, if the census says that one area is in, we can't take it out if it doesn't make logical sense to it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's helpful.
Did you know how that works with the land use? Not that it matters, it's the census that determines it. Right?
Yeah, right, and future development too, so, yeah. Okay. All right, well.
And then we also have our planning area, which is where we expect to become urbanized in the next 20 years. And so in the planning area, you can actually access, so for other funding programs like surface transportation block grants, those areas could access either urban or rural SDBG funds. It's a little bit more flexible within the planning area. Within the urban area, you can only access the SDBG urban dollars, and outside the planning area, you can only access the SDBG rural dollars.
Does this map include
the
the planning area? I mean, the planning area?
This is just the urban area
now
that's being shown. Yep.
North of the blue.
Okay.
Yep. The planning area goes down and includes all of Fitchburg and the Village of Oregon.
Oh, all of Fitchburg.
Yep.
And Oregon.
Okay.
And Oregon. That's
That's
pretty
really
far.
pulling that.
All right, well, I just have a couple more questions if you're okay. So the 5310 money is federal, right? And do you see increases in that money every year?
We generally about 2%.
Okay. All right. Have you ever experienced a focal point, like we talked about group access? And I think Sun Prairie does this, like I don't think they use any of those county funds and they just use their own buses. Have you ever experienced the county giving money to a municipality, a senior center, to offset the cost of their own transportation service?
That'd be a question for Nathaniel.
Okay, all right, I'll ask him that.
I can't speak for the county. But yeah, Colonial Club does have its own vehicles and they do provide their own transportation as opposed to contracting with transportation solutions or, one of the other contracted providers.
So,
and so there's certainly
go ahead.
people there, and you could talk to Nathaniel about how that works. But I'm sure that they do get some funding to make it level the playing field with other areas like. Newbridge actually has just gotten their first vehicle, and we've awarded them a second as well.
Right.
So they're also going to be starting to provide some of their own transportation.
Right. Have you ever seen 5310 grant money? So say we have the group access and the county pays for that we would apply for operating to increase our hours of service through that same provider. So right now, transit, say we have, 20 hours a week provided by transit, we get more funding from 5310, so we can get 40 hours a week from transit. Is that ever an option?
Well, absolutely, yeah. That would be, again, you're contracting with a provider for increased transportation services. It would be an operating project, so it would be 50% federal, 50% local. But certainly, yeah, you can augment and expand that. Definitely eligible.
Okay. All right. I think that's all my questions. Anybody else? All right. Ben, thank you so much for your time.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We haven't seen the last of us.
Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions. I'm always happy to pop in and talk with you. And as I said, Jill, you're on my list. When we release the draft coordinated plan, you'll get that.
Okay.
Please do feel free to provide any comments and one thing that will follow from this, something I haven't talked about yet. There's a third piece of the puzzle. There are some links. I'll also send you that presentation so you have the links that are in there and that whole slide deck. But once the coordinated plan is updated and adopted, we'll then start next year updating the PCMRP. Again, I don't like the long, full thing. We just call it the Program Management Plan. It's basically sort of the rule book of how we go about administering that 5310 grant program. And that's where we can then make some additional tweaks to the scoring methodology. That's not in the coordinated plan, that's in the Program Management Plan. And so if you had comments that, well, this is really not fair, we need to, we need to have a max of 10 points eligible for new programs, not a max of 8 or a max of 6. That's somewhere where those comments become really important. But again, that's not in the coordinated plan, that's in the program management plan, which we'll be updating next year.
Okay. And one more follow-up question, because I heard you talk about getting money to extend paratransit. So, if the referendum passes, we're going to see paratransit come a little bit further down and serve the center, but it's not going to serve as much area as we need. Can you also do operating to subsidize that paratransit and extend that route like you mentioned, like to a mile instead of whatever? Okay.
Sure. Yep. And you'd have to negotiate that with Metro as well, because obviously they're the provider of that service. Right now, the Village of Shorewood Hills contracts with Metro for paratransit only. So there is a precedent there of serving beyond that minimum 3/4 mile from fixed route transit stops.
Is that the max a mile, or you can negotiate however far you want to go?
You can negotiate whatever you can negotiate. It's just that the federal requirement is 3/4 of a mile from all-day regular fixed route stops.
Yep.
So, another way to go would be if you found the funding to make the 65 run all day, then all of a sudden paratransit has to serve within 3/4 of a mile as well. But because it's peak only, paratransit does not have to follow that as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
I think that's it. And I got your email.
Good day.
All right, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was a lot of information.
One of the sections that I was bothered by was the ridership thing?
Well, that's what I'm gonna talk about right now. So,
We have to
Right.
estimate.
Right.
ridership.
So I got some figures from Dane County about our transit solution contract, which is mainly for nutrition. And so this year, and these are one-way trips as well, January, we had 344, February, we had 500, March, 519, April, 575, May, 536, June, 459, July, 482. So this is a huge increase from
January.
well, yeah, because it gets nicer out too, but like before COVID on 2019, because this is when I started to really push for that second bus because it was getting kind of kooky. So just some comparisons, like 2019 before COVID, in January we did 242 rides, and in 2024 we did 344. February 330 to 500. March 372 to 519. So just in that 5-year period, we're adding a couple hundred rides almost. But again, these are our maximum rides right now, and I'll have the rest at the end of the year. But that was what's, looking at what is our cost per ride? Are we going to score very high? If we're looking at 50, we're not going to get probably 1,500 rides a month, I don't think. So these are all things that we have to consider. But I think this was helpful to hear these different opportunities. I knew about the shared ride taxi. I didn't know about adding money to Metro. I didn't know about expanding transit solutions, which is kind of could turn into a shared ride taxi. So I have a lot of thoughts in my head. We can still, again, look at our own bus and our own driver. But again, in this fiscal environment, I don't see the city funding a driver. You can see Newbridge is using that money right now to fund a driver, and that's not going to be sustainable. So lots of things to kind of piece out and then figure out what is the direction that we really want to head. So that's where I'm at. Go ahead.
The numbers you just gave us is specific to lunch.
Right, but that's all the transportation we have.
Okay.
And even if they're coming for exercise or staying for lunch and learn, that's all sort of in this. It also includes our shopping trips, but that doesn't push us over the edge. Yesterday or Tuesday, I think we had 4 people shopping, so we never really get more than 6.
Okay.
So it doesn't pad these numbers.
For them it helps, but for the individual itself.
Absolutely, yeah.
it's not
So
gonna help us.
so at least we have something to go by that's going to tell us, where we're going to score there. But I do think because we have such a need, that's going to work in our favor. So if you are comfortable with it, I have to put things down on a little spreadsheet to say, are we going to go this way? Do we want to expand this? What's going to happen with the referendum? If the referendum doesn't go through, that's going to be a bigger problem, because I was hoping, if that goes through, then we do have the paratransit, at least down to here, that's going to serve some folks that qualify for paratransit. So just lots of things to consider.
Jill, there were a whole bunch of slides on roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's why I said if we did shared ride taxi, are they going to fill out those reports?
Progress reports to fill out.
Yeah, I think that I know folks that have done this and it's doable. I think once you get used to doing those reports, once we get through that first hump of the attorneys and all the contracts and stuff, it's really not that much. I remember doing this a lot with CDBG grant funds years and years and years ago when we got grant funding to supplement transportation. It was a lot of reporting. In fact, that's one of the reasons that I was like, I can't do this anymore, but I can.
Well, he said they were very cautious about approving ongoing programs.
Right.
And so what's the likelihood that if they approve this, that they would approve it a second year?
I can't.
I mean,
There's no
guarantee.
I
know from some organizations, they have been funded regularly for several years. But again, that's why I was asking, are you always seeing increases in this funding? Like he had mentioned this year, they had more requests than they had money. I think it's interesting to look at that. I didn't realize that about the DOT. Like I knew there was the state grant and I knew there was the MPO, but I didn't know how we fell. So that was really interesting to learn about. And if we can't provide the ridership in that rural area, are we less likely to get that grant? Or do they really kind of take into consideration there is no other transportation? So that's going to score really high.
What is, just clarification, you mentioned Route 65? I don't know.
I think he's talking about the one down
Bus stop.
Cheryl,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yeah,
So-
that's the
so
one we
east,
talked
west.
about before, that if we could get them to make that all-day
Regular
route
route.
instead of just a commuter day route.
So if we win the referendum, is that the possibility that that's the route that would come here?
It
And
would,
then
it would
turn
be,
around.
it would be a normal route on Cheryl,
On Cheryl.
and then the paratransit would come within 3/4 of a mile from Cheryl,
Cheryl.
whatever
But it's still
direction.
not door to door kind of.
Paratransit is door to
Right.
door, but right, the commuter
But not
route is not.
extending the 65, that's just regular transit
That's just regular
Right.
transit, but we
Right.
get paratransit with that.
with that.
And
Which
then
gives us another 3/4 of a mile, you're saying?
correct, for
Okay,
people
gotcha.
that qualify for paratransit, so
Right.
that's not.
Not everyone
everybody.
to qualify,
Right.
right.
Just physically, not financially. And the second thing about if the referendum did pass and they did make that a regular route, we're looking at the earliest, August 2025 for paratransit, for it all to get organized and set in stone and operating,
We
maybe.
don't have anything now, so.
So
But
anyway,
in regards to the applications too, it was very clear that you have to be very specific, very strategic in writing out that application. No fluff. I mean, it's just, yeah.
No.
Yeah, you heard him say it on that one, I didn't even bother.
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very clear. And so
That's why I was asking about the opportunity to do some in-person
Yeah.
in addition to the written,
yeah,
a narrative that goes along with it.
yeah.
Did you notice early in the presentation under eligible activities, coordination of rides, they would fund 80% of it? Did you see that?
Isn't that
Or was that?
administration?
Side of it.
That, I do know what you're saying, the mobility management, was that what it was
What
called?
was,
Under
I
the
wrote it down,
80/20?
coordination of rides, so would that be 80% of
I
what
think-
we would provide?
I think it would be 50/50 because that's operational, but I can.
It was under capital, which.
I did see that
Which
mobility
struck me as
management,
weird.
I did,
Yeah.
so I can follow up with him about that.
Maybe it's the way you word it, if we can word
One
it
of the
right,
things
we
that
get
disturbed
80%.
me about, we were looking primarily at capital, buying a bus.
Mhm.
But the operational section where it's 50% instead of 80%, correct me if I was wrong, but I thought he said that we discourage anybody applying to this because they don't want to have you
Dependent.
be dependent on that year after year after year. So, I got the feeling that you apply for operational and you probably aren't going to get that.
I feel like you will the first time.
But it won't be.
It's not, so you have to prove that you're gonna be able to sustain it, which is why, I talked a lot about, we need to be partnering with the city, we need to bring the city on board, because even if we can fund this for 1 or 2 years, you don't want this to fall apart
Right.
if we don't have a commitment from the city.
I mean, that's why he was saying, you don't
Correct.
depend on it.
Right,
So
right.
you may get it this year, not necessarily the next year.
Right,
So.
yeah, so.
But maybe only 1 year is enough if we get that person to then teach our people how to do the record keeping and that sort of thing. Yeah, maybe not, with regard to the day-to-day coordination of stuff, but in terms of the documentation and that sort of
But,
thing.
yeah, but I think we're talking about the 1 year of funding.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the 1 year of funding, maybe that's how you prove the need. You've got 1 year of covered, and it's hard because, you start your budget ask to the city in June, so we're not gonna have a lot of data to say to the city, we need to put this in the budget. But I think that, we have a coordinated plan, our own plan. I think,
Can I go back to the one, what I was trying to say?
Mhm.
Looking at the slide for ridership,
right.
it looked to me like it was ridership for the new bus, for your request for the new bus, not all of this stuff.
not this.
Yeah, I don't think that
Well-
that counts. It's only, if you're asking for a
Correct.
new bus, what is your ridership for that new bus?
Right, so that
And we
was.
don't know.
Well,
We have no
that's,
clue.
right, so the question, and this is what I've talked to the county, and it's been a long time. I explored, so this is, the bulk of our ridership is nutrition, obviously, because that's the only transportation we have. I don't think we're gonna double that just with programs. So I had spoke to the county a long time ago, what's the possibility of taking that county funding that they're paying for now, for our bus here, and giving it to us to manage our own program, because then we get all this ridership. But it's a catch-22 too. So I don't want to go down that road, but I want to explore that because I want to talk to Sun Prairie. Again, it's been many years since I talked to the transportation person at the county to say, can we have that money? And so now I know how much that money is, and I'm going to bleed into what happened with just recently. So the county contracts with Transit Solutions. It's not senior center contract. They say, you get this bus from 10:30 to 12:30, 5 days a week, we'll give you, they tell us exactly what they're gonna do, whatever. When I started to advocate, because our numbers started to go up, we got that second bus, but it was funded by ARPA funding. So which was wonderful. That's how we got 2 buses, because yes, Monday's our biggest day. We had 19 people just riding the bus. And that was happening a few years back, and people were waiting an hour or more to be picked up. They were waiting an hour or more to go home. They were on the bus for an hour. So finally, the county said, all right, we're gonna go ahead and pay for 1 more bus for you. Well, the ARPA funding ran out. So I got a call a couple weeks ago from the county saying, this money did not get put into the DHS budget. We're not sure if you're gonna have the second bus. So anyway, long story short, they found the funding. That second bus cost $52,000. So that's the contract. That's what they're paying Transit Solutions for that second bus, just to give us an idea of what it would maybe to contract with somebody.
And was it the same hours, 10:30 to 12:30?
Same hours, yep, same hours. So luckily, we've got that second bus, because we would have been in a world of hurt, really.
Well, you mentioned trying to pull all of this together in some sort of spreadsheet. And for somebody who's new to the transportation kind of challenge, that would be so helpful.
Yeah,
to know,
for sure.
What are the different possible,
right?
Yeah. What
Yeah,
are
which would, yeah.
funding
yeah.
sources and kind
Pros
of
and
if
cons,
then.
you know, I think so. So I will work on that. Obviously, we're not making any decisions today, but I think we're doing good with our information gathering. I did try to reach out to Stoughton about their shared ride taxi. And it is kind of interesting because Running Inc. pretty much runs a lot of the shared ride taxis. And like he had mentioned, Brown Cab, they also are sort of under the Running Inc. So I got really confused when I was talking to this person, and then I said, we'd like someone to speak, and they sent me to Shared Ride Taxi to Jason, who spoke to us. So I'm still looking for the right person to say, how does this work in your community?
Yeah.
And so I will keep looking for that as well, because I think just having that experience of a municipality, I know Beaver Dam uses Brown Cab or something, which is still Running Inc. But somebody to come and say, this is how it works for our municipality.
Somebody from the actual space as
Correct.
opposed to
The owner.
the contracted entity.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Even
I'm
though
working on
the
that.
Running Inc. concept is a good concept.
Right, that's the shared ride taxis.
Yeah. It
And they
is.
take care of all the administration?
They do.
Yeah.
All of the scheduling.
Yeah.
But shared
Their
ride,
employment.
they won't pick up 16 people.
Shared ride will. Single taxi, whenever you.
Single taxi
yeah.
would, well, okay.
A shared ride, if they're going to Chapel Valley, 4 people can, if we have the right
Right.
van.
I mean,
vehicle.
paratransit pick up several people.
Exactly,
Okay.
right, exactly, yeah. So anyway, I think this was really helpful today.
One other thing, we've been talking a lot of options, and one of them was to buy our own bus.
Correct.
And he said that the 5310 is a reimbursement where we have to buy the bus ourselves
And
up
then
front.
give us the money.
And then they get the money back to us. So we would have to do some sort of a capital campaign to buy a bus.
Well, that would be hard. I mean, I couldn't, then you have to go back and give the donors all the money. I would have to talk to the city about that.
Right. Sounds-
That would be
like
really
that.
you know, to.
I don't think anybody wants to deal with that.
To get, you know, I think we're looking at 65, 70,000 for, you know, a 14 passenger, 10, you know, 10 or 12 and 2 or whatever.
But remember, we also need a driver and.
Well, if you do shared ride taxi, you know. So Newbridge, you know, in another year, if they were further along, it'd be interesting to see how they're gonna fund 2 buses, 2 drivers,
So, you know, considering what they described as rural, do we have any individuals that?
Right, not very many.
Okay, thanks.
Not, you know, I mean, because I thought it was gonna be Lacey for the rural, but it's Irish. So they're not a lot beyond Irish.
South of that.
No, So that part that you had about, because it sounds like the DOT has a lot more money.
Yeah.
So how we can finagle, I don't wanna say that.
Well, and I know there's seniors out there with me in my building and
But
the
you're-
building that's next to Donald.
but you're urban.
Well, you're urban.
Yeah, you're
But nothing would come out there to us yet, because we're way too far.
Right, so something to look at.
Yeah, there aren't very many. Mandy could probably tell you how many people are.
Just to get the
just on
meals.
Meals on Wheels.
Yeah, and even with case management, I mean, I could tell you.
Yeah, there's just not very many.
If we get the 5310 approved for the bus, then that's the purchase of the bus. That's not operational.
Right.
So once we have the bus, we can use it for whatever we want.
If we have a driver.
No, if we have running.
Oh, right, we lease it back to them.
But as far as the
Yes.
5310 is concerned, once we have their money to fund the bus, then it doesn't matter whether we go all the way down to the hot guy's place, Four Seasons and stuff like that, outside of in the rural area.
Right.
We don't need to worry about that because there's no funding anyway.
Right, but we need to show them in the grant application, you have to
Yeah,
kind of
now,
show
yeah.
what the ridership, yeah, right.
And now we have to speculate on what's the ridership gonna be.
Lots to think about.
20, having a bus is the harder 4 or 3 options.
Okay, all right,
4 options.
I think we can move on, unless there's more questions about transportation.
5310? Okay, Jerry, time to talk about friends. How much money are you gonna give to this bus?
You have $60,000 worth?
Go up by a couple decimal points, actually it was $600 last month that we supported Jill's programs with, or I should say the senior center programs. But, big thing is that we had our brat fry last August 16th and.
You ran out of brats.
Yeah, we did. It's amazing how many people showed up late in the going that we, just didn't have the brats. So
Somebody got mad at me because I got one. At the lady barn, they didn't get one.
One of our people even, fell on her sword by eating a vegan brat instead of a real.
They made you go get vegan brats.
But we are looking at having a, greater number next year.
You did do one at the beginning of the summer and one at the end of the summer. Well, not too far in the beginning, that's right, because we have, Brat Fest itself.
Yeah.
What is that? Having the vegan brat was a good idea. My wife, she's not vegan, but she doesn't like the grease in regular brats, and I think that she really liked it. I think it's a good thing that you added that to the system.
Me too. I requested.
I'm vegetarian.
Yeah, at whose prompting? Your wife's.
Well, did she really?
Jill.
There you go. Did she do that?
Yes. But anyway, we'll definitely keep that in mind for next year. Speaking of celebrations, Thursday, September 19th, the Senior Center is celebrating National Senior Centers Month, and the Friends will be funding the presence of the Red Hot Horn Dogs for entertainment. And we will be serving pulled pork sandwiches and beverages, including beer and I think wine coolers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wine coolers.
I think we had that last year, and we sold some. But anyway, so we will be participating in that. On other notes, our travel committee is coordinating and booking tours for 2025 already. 2024, I believe, is closed. If you want more information, you can go to the Friends website or look in the hallway across from the receptionist desk at the senior center for flyers on several of the trips. And come next month, we will be having our annual meeting, and we will be welcoming a new board member, Deb Cook, and we will be saying goodbye and thank you to members Jack Pinkert and Shirley Plum. And we've also got another prospective member for starting in October, but things haven't been, well, we're still in the interview process. That's pretty much it for the Friends then.
Okay, Jerry, thank you. Any questions for Jerry? Okay, Madam Director.
Oh, wow. Always thank you, Friends, for your support, for everything that they do, really. I wanted to bring up that email that I sent through that I got from Bill Jetzer about the proclamation for the week without driving. Bill had wondered if anybody wants to come and talk about the challenges of not driving. This proclamation is going to be on the 24th of September, and it challenges drivers to give up their cars for a week so they can experience what it is to not have transportation. So when I had initially responded, I said, I don't know if it's going to be a real positive discussion if we come to the council to talk about that. But he thought that maybe, somebody could just talk about their experience of what it is to not have transportation, how long it takes to get places, where do you call, even things about crosswalks and that kind of stuff. So you don't have to tell me today, but if you would like to come and talk before council about the struggles of not driving, let me know.
When is the date?
The 24th of September, the council meeting. I think it's at probably 7:30, and I'll let you know. Let's see, moving on, the mayor will release her budget on September 23rd, so that will be open, for the public to look over. And then there's a public hearing on October 8th, and that's when people can come and speak. And I am going to put together some talking points for the commission and the Friends to come and speak if so desired, to advocate for the LTE nutrition site assistant that was not included in the budget. And so I will share those talking points with you within a week or so. And then again, the public hearing is on the 8th. After that public hearing, every council person has the opportunity to put an amendment in to change the budget, to add, to take away. Those amendments will be due by the 12th. And then there's another public hearing on November 12th with a final vote on the budget. So that's how long the budget will take. And the referendum will be done by then too, so that will impact the budget one way or another as well.
Do we, or have we ever, has the commission ever made a recommendation to our representative to make amendments?
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that a little bit? People looking at me.
Sure.
Don't look at me.
Yeah.
Regarding why we have the stuff we have in the budget.
Right, the talking
just
points.
To make sure, just to make sure it's understood and that Donald understands it so he can, be our strongest advocate. Needless to say, he's right there at the time.
Right. It'll be good to have other advocacy as well, but Donald, I can talk to you more in depth about the history of that nutrition position and the most recent LTE position that was included. And how we'd like for that to be permanent, not LTE. So right now, that employee doesn't have benefits, they don't have vacation, they don't have anything. But go ahead.
Would that not be
discussion for the group as well, so that we all are aware and
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
it?
Oh, yeah, that's why I thought the talking points that I can share, so you do. But I mean, ask me any questions. I just felt like you guys were more involved when we had that nutrition talk, but certainly ask me questions about that position right now,
Yeah.
if you have them.
Well,
Or I
from the
can
time
share.
that she's come on board to now, I guess I think, whoever goes on top, we need to be able to demonstrate value, what's changed.
Right.
Whether or not that's increased the number of hours that we've been able to do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Has it increased dollar amounts, the efficiency and effectiveness of having that? I think from a strategic standpoint, if we're gonna talk to the council, we've got to be able to, the bottom line, how does it impact the city, how does it impact us?
I don't have those all pulled
Yeah,
together.
no, I'm just throwing that out
That
there
was
for us
why
to
I
think
was gonna
about.
share the talking points with everybody, so we're all consistent and we have the same information. But I just didn't have that together for today's meeting. And then when I share them, if you guys have questions, just, you can reach out and say, I don't understand what you're saying here. But then because I just want everyone to have the same document.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I think she's done a great job. I think it added value. But we've got to be able to communicate in a manner where other people really understands where we're coming from.
I think the lunch program seems like it goes a lot smoother since she's been there.
Yeah, no.
I mean, not that, anyone's doing anything before she came, but she's got a handle on who's there, who's not,
Right, 'cause that's
And
her
when she
sole
sees somebody
job.
new come in, like she always asks, are you here for lunch? When I'm coming to do nails, I need to call and make a reservation, but I always forget. But she's kind enough to, and there's been other, she just asks, are you okay? Are you interested in lunch or whatever?
Right.
So that's nice. The other thing is she goes table to table during lunch to ask people, did you miss something? Or, sometimes I didn't get the dessert, not me personally, because I always get double, but other people may not get the dessert or whatever, and she ensures that they get that. That's, for me, that's added value. There's somebody just doing just that as opposed to trying to figure out, the other logistics of lunch.
And it's at the end of the day, it's about what value has that brought to the senior center? It has, how has it impacted Mandy to be able to do more or be more efficient and et cetera?
Exactly.
So that to me is really, really important, in terms of how do we demonstrate that? How do we communicate that strategically?
Well, and I don't take it lightly, the Friends have funded it this year and I am so grateful, and I don't take using other people's, whether it's city taxpayers' money, the Friends' money. So that's why I just didn't have time. I want to put together a very solid, talking points for all of you, so we all feel confident in that position and why it's needed, so.
I just wasn't sure how that worked.
Sure.
Is there a negotiation if the city won't fund all of it?
They'll pay for benefits or? No.
Sometimes the negotiation is not a January start date, a July start date. There's that kind of, there's that. I've done that negotiation before.
If our winters are slow, maybe she doesn't work,
It's hard to
November,
keep somebody
December,
on
January.
board.
As an LTE, it is.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, so.
Donald, have they said anything at meetings? Does this ever come up at the discussion of funding for us come up at meetings for the senior center?
I brought it up when we were talking about the like when we were doing the CIP budget and things like that. But I think, from my perspective, it's a line item that tends to get overlooked in a sense. So just having more conversations with Jill and making sure that those things stay in front of the forefront. And I think it's also been helpful sharing out what's going on at the senior center during council meetings. Like Jill usually will send me some talking points, and I'll talk about those things during those standing committee reports and then other things that are going on. And I think that's helping bring more visibility to the senior center and having individuals pay more attention to what's going on.
Thank you for doing that.
Okay. Let's see, just quick updates. We are trying to get transportation for the senior center month so people we've had some folks that don't have transportation express an interest in coming. I can get a provider, transit can bring people there, but they don't have somebody to take them home at 7. So we're working on that. We might reach out to some volunteers because we have a handful of folks that, and I want them to be able to come. So working on that. We had ambassadors go out to Terra Vesa. So the ambassador program is kind of an offshoot of the inclusion toolkit. Is just kind of getting people, our peers, instead of staff going out to do more outreach, so they can connect with their peers versus just myself or the staff. Christy went to Terra Vesa. They had a big neighborhood party. Was that you? That's not you. You're not Terra Vesa. Yeah, you're further, closer, yeah. Anyway, she said it was really well received. A lot of people came and got information. And so I was really happy about that. And then Jesus and I went to community night out and did some outreach there with the police and other city departments, and very well attended. Lots of diversity at community night out at McKee Farms Park. So that was great. So the goal now is, as we get everybody your shirts, and Donald, I gotta get you a shirt that says Senior Center, is that Mandy has put together an ambassador training, like a PowerPoint. So as we recruit new ambassadors, to not just go out in the community, but even events like the Bratfest, or when we have the pancake breakfast, that these folks are kind of zooming in on people that might be new, that welcome them to the center, because oftentimes in those busy events, staff is running around. And so we want to have a nice training program. We give them a shirt, and then they're well aware of all the programs and services, not just the ones you think you know about, because there's a lot more that goes on. So we'll put our current ambassadors, which is kind of the multicultural work group, we're going to train them first and then bring it to the commission and the Friends, because the Friends are by proxy ambassadors as well as this board. And so just to have that consistency as well, is when you go out and talk about the senior center, we're all giving the same accurate information. And so working on that.
I don't live in a senior building, but I know that I'm familiar with 4 seniors in my building, and we talk over coffee. Is it possible I can have 4 of those little baggies to take to those guys?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
We have welcome bags now. In fact, I am working with Highline and the Limerick, and they're going to give me some money to give welcome bags to their new residents and help us offset the cost. So the welcome bags have a nice logo. They have a free lunch ticket. They have some candy, a senior center pen, and then they're called Files of Life, which is a magnetic thing you put on your fridge. It has all your medications and your emergency contacts. So EMS gives them out too. So they're going to pay for us to hand out those welcome bags, or their management will give them to everybody. But if anybody ever wants some just to have on hand, let me know. Let's see, we are getting, along the lines of county funding, I'm still going to Dane County Public Hearing tonight to advocate for more funding. We used to just advocate for case management and nutrition. It's kind of switched a little bit, where we're called a purchase of service provider, and there's a whole bunch of purchase of service providers, like the mental health folks that contract with the county. We're all going in together to ask for a COLA increase of 3% and then an admin cost of 5%, so 8% across the board. And so we'll see what happens with that.
And this is county?
This is Dane County, that budget. So I'll be doing that. Just want to encourage folks, Janice had UW social workers come out and talk about how important it is to fill out your powers of attorney for healthcare. And they are coming back, and it's so important. It's so important, and I don't even have one. And I'm going to sign myself up because it's just ridiculous not to have that. And going through what I went through with my parents, I was well versed on what their wishes were, and it's really important. So they are coming back in October 2 times. There's 2 at a time. Go ahead, Janice.
Actually, there's a possibility of 3 times. We've got 2 definite times. And each time we can have 2 individuals come in. They'll come in and sit down with you, talk about advanced planning, help you fill out all the applications, and so it does spend time, an hour or so with you to make sure that you understand it, and that they can help you walk through that questions and what have you, but.
And then they'll witness it, because you
Yeah,
have
and
to have
they'll
two
witness
witnesses that are.
And as well, then they will also scan it and fax it to your health provider.
Which is
that
amazing.
goes into the files.
Yeah, so spread the good news, because that is a great
Do you make an appointment or
Yes,
just drop in?
sign
Make
up.
appointments?
Yeah.
You make the appointment, sign up at the front desk, I believe, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or you can go online, you
Yeah.
can schedule yourself, there's 30-minute time slots, and I think they're here most of the day.
They'll
Like
be most of the
9
day,
to
yeah.
2 or 10 to 2
Yeah.
or something, so a really great program, so thanks for getting that going. We're also working with, Dave is working with the city to use something called Notify Me, and I don't know if any of you sign up for that. Okay, good. Notify Me, and we should do, Jeremy kind of went through it in his FACTv, I think, maybe not. The city has a site where you can get notifications about all kind of things going on, road things, police things, all that. For a long time, we had one about, you can sign up to get the minutes from the Commission on Aging. We had one where you could sign up to get the newsletter, but we've kind of moved over to Google, to Constant Contact for that. But we're using Notify Me to let people know when classes are canceled, because what we're finding is, an instructor calls in the morning, and we got, 40 people that do aerobics that day, 20 and 20, and we can only email them. Well, half those people don't look at their emails. It's a lot to call them, because we'll get the call at 8 and class starts at 8:30 or something. So this is a Notify Me through a text. So you can sign up for whatever class. We're gonna pilot it with aerobics and cardio drumming. And that you can sign up to get a text alert, and then boom, because lots of people see their text right away. So that's pretty cool, and it'll save us a lot of time and save people a lot of frustration. Like, we sent an email, and to call 40 people is you're not going to get them all anyway. So
yeah, when Jeremy came in and spoke about FACTv, he did speak about.
Yeah, it's a good
yeah.
thing. And then we'll also do a little training too, I think, as we add more programs for cancellations. So, but we're going to start with those two. And then we also are installing a people counter. This is something I've talked about for years, because we don't have a great system for knowing how many people come through the doors, because we don't make everybody sign up for everything. And so the library had installed one recently, and they vetted this vendor pretty hard, because I've looked here and there over the years. But anyway, it's called Facility Site, and so they'll be installing probably in the next couple weeks a sensor up at this main door, which is where at the community center, which is where a ton of our participants come in.
For classes and stuff.
We never see them. We have a lot of pre-registered, but we also don't, So, and then we'll have one down at our main door. And it's a pretty cool thing. There's tons of reports. You can dice it up by hour. You can dice it up by weather. So I'm super excited about that. So that will be.
When is that going to be installed?
I hope by October. And then we'll start using it. It'll be ready to go fresh by January, so we can really get a nice snapshot. But we'll start using it in October, but really to have it ready to go in January, so we can really.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. Give us a handle on what's.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm afraid, because I always say, we get about 200 people, because I can count in my head what program's going on, that kind of stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope it's more. I hope it's not less, or I'm not telling y'all. So anyway, that's kind of exciting. I've been waiting a long time for that. Edgewood nursing students started last week. We've got 7 second, third year nursing students that have partnered up with older adults to just give them a little TLC. And then they also do some programs sometimes, I think maybe once a month. But they're down on Thursdays. They stay for lunch. They eat with participants. And it's just it's a really nice collaboration with Edgewood to give those students. I tell you, it's like probably being a teacher. You see these students come through, and some classes are so amazing, and their ability to interact is so high, and then other folks, they're so shy, and they're, so this is a good experience to say, you got to get out there, you got to, connect with these folks. So also, we're kicking off Housing Navigator volunteer program. We've been, Amy and Katie have been working with Joining Forces for Families, because we both struggle with trying to find folks housing, because it's very time consuming to try to get people housing, to help them fill out applications, to do all kind of stuff. So we've created, mostly Joining Forces for Families, created a training program of what it takes to help someone go through housing. The Friends have given us some money to pay for people's applications, because it's either $15, $20 to put an application in. And a lot of people don't even have that. So the Friends are covering that with a Visa gift card so we can pay for applications. So we're starting to recruit for volunteers, and it will be held at the Boys and Girls Club on Wednesdays, which is when they have their food pantry. So we will only serve older adults. Joining Forces for Families will serve families, but we're using their computer lab, so it's really great. It's a great collaboration, and then also, oh, go ahead, Jan.
Just a question. Amy was telling me about that yesterday. I think it's a great program, but one question I have for her, with our new housing person, do we get...
that's a good question.
Yeah, why don't we introduce her,
That's a
get her involved? I think it just makes sense.
I didn't even think about that, because she's so new. Thank you.
Yeah,
I will.
okay.
I will tell them about the program. That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Friends.
Oh, I know. The Friends are amazing. The Friends also...
I've had a couple people who, and during my when I was teaching, families who just needed $20 to apply for the apartment.
Right.
That's all they needed. And we would take it out of our pot money fund.
Right.
So it's just, I don't know how much how much it means to a family. When they can at least apply for apartment. That money makes such a difference for families.
Right. And also the Friends paid for gift cards, because we do a raffle at the outreach events, and to get them to come to our table. Maybe that's why we're so busy, but we do a quick trip card giveaway. So thank you, Friends, for that. And then lastly, Dave is also working with Boys and Girls Club, because years ago we had a huge indoor walking program at Breakaway Sports in the winter, and we get up to 30, 40 people. Because they don't want to go to the mall to walk, but they want to keep active. So we're going to use the Boys and Girls Club. They've got a nice, huge gym there. So hopefully he's meeting with them today, and we'll kick that off. Probably not till November, because October is still pretty nice. So that will be a nice location to have that. And I think other than that, I hope to see you all next week at the Red Hot Horn Dogs. Go ahead.
Something. In August, we had the alders come for lunch and learn, and I want to thank you, Donald, and the alders. They did a really good job. There was, a lot of engaged and a lot of questions and what have you. Thank you, Barb and Bounce, for attending those. But I think that, and a couple of alders asked, Janice, can you bring us back? Can we come back? So that was very, very important to the alders as well as the participants of the senior center. So I just want to share that. So they came, had them. There was two groups of since we have 2 alders for each district, and it was great. And it was something. Again, Barb and Bonds, thanks again for showing up. Hopefully, we'll see the rest of you come the next time we have them. That would be great.
What is it? Mental health through
this month? What is mental health? I just had last week. Journey Mental Health was here, and then next week will be Anissa's therapy to talk about it. Amazing how the questions and how engaged people are about that. I mean,
it's really gaining traction.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It's
So
lovely.
And it's also bringing some people we don't see very often.
Each time.
So that's another
faces
ambassador kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. We need to.
Yeah.
So now we can count them.
Right. Well, and Janice and I talked about that because
they don't always want to sign it. They just came for that and they want to leave.
They want to specifically for a particular topic.
Right, and that's what we can even piece out with these reports. Like, oh wow, look at this!
Nice.
Look at this day around 12 to 1. We had a huge influx. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. So, but I think it goes to show what each of you bring to the table as volunteers and ambassadors, and just really appreciative of everybody that makes our center. Well, and you're doing nails and meals, and men's group, and Paul's doing meals.
And the lunch is not.
It's just like you guys aren't just talking the talk. So I appreciate that. So.
And as someone who got a meal when I had surgery. Those bags just make you smile.
Those bags with the aren't they fun?
Having back surgery and not barely making it to the door to get my meals. The people who bring the meals are just fabulous.
Right. That's
But the
great.
bags just make you smile.
Yeah, I
They
know.
really do.
That's a really fun program. It's really taken off, so, yeah. Go ahead, Barb.
It will be helpful for me if you can nudge us on dates that you could use our voices.
You got it.
Remind us of those.
Oh, I will.
Council meeting dates.
Whatever it is.
And even special events, as you got your shirts and you come and then they know,
Give us
yeah.
We're not actively involved in the center. Like myself, I'm not here very much, so when you need us to be there.
I will.
Well, I'm there about once or twice a week, and I forget sometimes. It's like, oh my gosh, the meeting was last night or whatever.
In the evening.
Yeah.
It gets kind of.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anything else for Jill? Any announcements? Motion for approval?
I so move.
Dismissal?
Approve.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, later.
I really have to be down on it.